What's good? What's good? What's good, you guys? Tuning in to another episode, yes, you are, of Living More with the Morgans. I am your co host. My name is Landis Ray Morgan, and I'm here with my beautiful wife.
What is up? What's up? What's up? What's
What's
up?
going down?
What's going down?
MC Rowe is in the building.
Hey,
MC Lander G, it's your boy. And
yes,
it is Living More with the Morgans, part two of the hip hop episode, you guys. You guys are tuned in to a brand new episode of Living More with the Morgans, and you're live with us on our social media
yes,
platforms. And of course, if you are live, we want to hear from you. So shout out, let us know that you're tuned in right now. And you're tuned in on several of our platforms across the internet right now. And you're probably watching us directly from our Facebook page. Facebook.com/ Living More Morgans is where you can find us, and we want to make sure that you guys can hear us. So let's make sure we got some audio. I think we're good right now. I just want to check and be sure.
yes.
Let's see. Okay, we good right now. We good. So
Good.
want to make sure that you guys can hear us coming through your speakers loud and clear, and we're
Yes.
coming through with the visuals crisp and clean. And you guys are watching us from Facebook right now, Facebook.com/ Living More with the Morgans. We're also live on Twitter, Twitter.com/ Live More Morgans. So if Twitter Periscope is your thing, you can find us hanging out with us on Twitter. And then we're also live on our YouTube channel. Right now, we can't see who is on our YouTube channel, but if you tuned in on YouTube, shout out to you guys. You can go there and subscribe to our official YouTube channel for Living More with the Morgans at youtube.com/ Living More Morgans. You can also connect with us and follow us on Instagram, Instagram.com/ Living More Morgans. And then you can hang out with us on TikTok, Tick to the Talk.
TikTok.
We are on there, so you can find us
Yes.
at Living More Morgans on TikTok as well, you guys. So right now, we're all over social media, so you ain't got no excuse not to be locked in with Living More with the
Right.
Morgans, you
No
guys.
excuse.
And so right now, if you're tuned in with us on our pages, be sure to share this on your wall. We
Please
want to hear
share.
from you. Share with all your people right now. This is good, clean content. You ain't got to worry about no cussing. You ain't got to worry about none of that, none of that riffraff. We ain't got we can be hood, but we ain't got to be ghetto with, you know what I'm saying? We ain't got to be all loud and all that stuff. So everything is clean, coming
Right.
through crisp. Everything is right on point right here on Living More with the Morgans, you guys. So again, be sure to go on your wall, share this on your wall, share this with your people, invite them to tune in to Living More with the Morgans, you guys. We got a good show because we're going to jump into part two
Yes.
of our series, the hip hop episode.
Hey.
And that was the thing last week. If you didn't watch the show, it is available in full length on our YouTube channel. Again, you can go to youtube.com/ Living More Morgans, and you can watch the whole rebroadcast of our first episode of the hip hop episode. And we really kind of dug into the history of hip hop, how my wife, she's more of a 70s, 80s baby. So she was there when this thing began 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I came in through the 80s and the 90s. So that's why you can kind of see how we representing. My wife got on the big gold chain, Big Daddy Kane chain. She doing her thing
Yes.
already with the bamboo earrings,
Come on
at
now.
least 2 pair. And then I'm over here in the 90s gear. Got to represent Dallas, D-Town, Dallas, Texas, with the Dirk Nowinski joint. You know how we going to do it.
Yes.
And so you guys, we come from 2 different eras of hip hop. Spanning 50 years. And so we wanted to celebrate it because right now, during the month of June, it is Black Music Month, you guys. And so during Black Music Month, we want to pay homage to Black musicians, Black artists, Black music that has been cultivated here in America. But we're also celebrating 50 years of hip hop. And
wild.
that's just crazy.
Yeah, it
How hip hop is already 50 years, you guys. I mean, I'm 42. And so I've seen 42 years. I missed the first 8 years of it, but it has just blown worldwide. This thing is just global, from the fashion, from the culture, from the slang, from the music, the videos. Just everything has impacted the world, even in business.
Yes.
Even in the business sector, it has impacted all facets of life. And nobody saw this coming 50 years
Nobody.
ago. What do you think,
No.
honey?
I mean, when it originally started, as we said before, in the first episode, it was, what is this? It was cutting edge.
Yeah.
It was fun, and it wasn't only the music or the rapping part of it, but
Right.
it was the clothing, and then the break dancing, and just seeing everything evolve.
Yeah.
And all of the the graffiti art and stuff was
Oh, yeah.
getting getting its fair share of a light that everybody talked about graffiti. Oh, it's bad, but in this era when it started, it was it was something that we all would, it was great. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. So everything started to evolve, and again, it was fun. It wasn't when it started with Curtis Blow and Grandmaster Flash, all of them. It wasn't no cussing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It was just talking about the neighborhood, or talking about just getting people together
Yeah.
to smile,
Yeah,
to laugh,
yeah.
because so much was going on. Remember, this was during the 70s, 80s, Soul Train,
Yeah.
all of that. People were trying to, black people were trying to find themselves,
Wow. And it's funny you say that, because I remember seeing old episodes I had to actually look at the archived episodes of Soul Train.
Right.
And I can remember how black music was kind of morphing into a new sound with hip hop coming onto the scene.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that Don Cornelius, in some of his interviews, he was a bit apprehensive of it,
Right.
because it was of course it was new,
Yes.
and it was street, it was hood, it was
Yeah.
urban. And so with Don Cornelius, I think at that time they were taping Soul Train mainly in Chicago, and then it moved to Los
Yes,
Angeles.
correct, yeah.
And so it was a brand new sound that, from coming from the East Coast, from New York. And so he was a bit reluctant to
He
like,
was.
okay, what is this?
Yes.
What is all this rap, hip hop stuff that's
Right.
going on? And so you guys, it has transformed and transcended, and it is just a humongous now. And so I want to jump on the
Yes.
comments, you guys, right now. We got my man Ron Davis all the way back in from New York. He came in today, and he was on the road, and I talked to him shortly, and he said out of the 50 years, the 90s was the best decade for sure.
Come on, Apostle. You wouldn't really know.
Oh, bro, you know,
You wouldn't really know.
you know
bro.
you're gonna hear that from her. You know you're gonna
You
get some
would.
heat. And I say the same thing. I think the 90s was the best decade.
It wasn't. I'm gonna tell you why. Because when you see something evolve and start, that is the best thing
Okay,
ever.
I can.
When you see it from its baby, the infancy stages.
Okay,
When
I
you
can-
see it and you're in it, and I mean, it became. I mean, it just morphed into a lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
and everything changed from clothing, from jewelry.
But-
It was just. I mean, it was revolutionary.
And so we were talking about how, and his comment was that the 90s were the best decade.
Right.
And my man Ron and I, we're both millennials, right? We're in our early 40s, and so
Right.
that's the decade that we grew up
Yeah.
really, in the trenches of hip hop for us. But you were saying how when you grew up, in the 70s and 80s, and you saw the infancy stages of
Right.
hip hop
Right. I
and the beginning.
Yes, and
You
I
know?
saw it evolve. And
Right.
It was just like I was saying earlier. It was fun.
Right,
You
right.
know, you. It wasn't only just hip hop, but it was the clothing.
Yes.
It was the the style. It was about the graffiti art. It was about the dancing, break dancing, all of that. All of this was evolving around that same time. I mean, hip hop brought all of that out.
Right.
And when I tell you, I mean, it was just so much fun. And me going into high school, we were we were just like, okay, we're gonna have our own little crew and start
Right.
our own hip hop, groups and stuff like that. And it was so much fun. Again, I used to rap. Now I can't.
Okay. At least you're honest.
I'm honest, but I'm writing my own rhymes and all of that. It was just so much fun.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, because
It was in the boom box.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
and you guys are seeing the origin
Yes.
of hip hop. You guys are seeing it being birthed.
Yes.
And at that time, in its rawest form, there were no corporate entities attached to it.
No.
There were no large record labels.
No.
There were no big businesses, Fortune 500 companies attaching themselves to
No.
hip hop, because it was raw, because it was new,
Yeah.
and it was misunderstood. You know, a lot of the population of America at that time, whether they be the majority, the white, Caucasian, you know, they didn't understand hip hop. You
Yeah.
know, and so it was brand new, and it was something again that was coming out of the streets,
Yeah.
predominantly from black and brown people.
Right.
And so when we say the 90s was the time, and the 90s was the time when the money started getting involved,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because, and I can remember, and I've got some of the lyrics here, I can remember one of the breakthrough songs in the 80s called The Message,
The Message.
Grandmaster Flash,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and when they dropped that joint, back then, the MCs, the master of ceremonies,
Yes.
the artists were dropping songs, and they were storytellers.
They were storytellers.
You know what I'm saying? And so they were telling what was going on and their plight and all that was transpiring, you know, in the inner city at that time.
Right.
And if you didn't grow up in inner city, the way you knew of it was through their lyrics, was through this new art form of music.
Right.
And then they fooled around and made music videos,
Right.
which was even more innovative
Right.
and more creative and brought more of a visual aspect to what it is that they were seeing. So if you grew up in the suburbs, this was totally brand new to you.
Totally.
You
brand
were
new.
not seeing that side of the tracks.
No.
You may have known that they existed, but not to that extent.
Right.
And so one of the songs, again, it was called The Message, and I wanted to recite the lyrics on last week's show, but we didn't get a chance to do it. And it's called The Message, and it's by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. And it was one of the first commercially successful hip hop songs,
It was.
along with Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight.
Right. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the message, when you read the lyrics, it says it's like a jungle sometimes that makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Yes.
And then that's the hook, that's the chorus of the song.
Yes.
It's like a jungle sometimes that makes me wonder how I keep from going under. The first verse, broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stairs, you know, they just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise. Got no money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back. Junkies in the alley with a baseball bat. I
Right.
tried to get away, but I couldn't get far because a man with a tow truck repossessed my car. Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Standing on the front stoop, hanging out the window, watching all the cars go by, roaring as the breezes blow. Crazy lady living in a bag, eating out of garbage pails, used to be a fag hag. Said she'll dance the tango, skip the life fandango. A Sircon princess seemed to lost her senses, down at the peep show watching all the creeps. So she can tell her stories to the girls back home.
Yeah.
She went to the city and got so sedity. She had to get a pimp. She couldn't make it on her own. It's like a jungle sometimes and make me wonder how I keep from going under.
Right.
And I'm gonna read one more verse. My brother's doing bad, stole my mother's TV.
Yeah.
Says she's watching too much. It's just not healthy. All my children in the daytime, Dallas at night. D-Town. Can't even see the game or the Sugar Ray fight. The bill collectors, they ring my phone and scare my wife when I'm not at home.
Right.
Got a bum education, double-digit inflation. Can't take the train to the job. There's a strike at the station. Neo King Kong standing on my back. Neon King Kong, excuse me,
Right.
standing on my back. Can't stop to turn around. Broke my Securilac, I don't know what that is. A mid-range migraine, cancered membrane. Sometimes I think I'm going insane. I swear I might hijack a plane. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. And there's much more to the song, but I wanted to recite just a little bit of that because that is how powerful storytelling was.
There you go.
That's how powerful they brought us into their situation, into their neighborhoods, just through their lyrics, just through the music.
Right.
And that's what hip hop was for, you guys. A lot of people have this misconception that, oh, it was about violence and it was about gang activity and it was about, no. Hip hop originally was about bringing people together. And what we see, what we saw initially, like my wife was saying, in the 80s and the 70s and the 80s, in the birthing stages of hip hop, it was more about storytelling.
That's right.
Because nobody was given a voice to the young black youth and the brown youth in the poor, poverty-stricken areas. Nobody was giving them a voice. They couldn't be heard on Capitol Hill. They couldn't be heard in their local governments. And so their outlet was the music. Their outlet was the culture.
Right.
And so what I love about that, and that's how black people do. Black people, we make something out of nothing.
Out of nothing.
We're able to take a little bit of something, and I'm talking about black people worldwide.
Right.
We're able to take a little bit of something and make it into something
Right.
special.
Right.
And that's what that's what they were able to do out of this
did.
art form.
They did that, and we have to remember today's rappers. You guys are standing on the shoulders of these guys. This is what they were doing. They were telling what was going on in their homes, going on in their neighborhoods, going on in the inner cities,
Right.
and really saying we need help. We want out of this. We want better for our lives, for our families, for our communities. You have to remember that we as a people migrated to the north. A lot of people got the opportunity from the south to go to the north so that they can get opportunities from being in bondage, slavery.
Right.
So you got people that thought, okay, we get to the north, maybe we have an opportunity to make a life for our families. And some of them were sadly mistaken.
Right.
Because they were still segregated. They were still separated. They were still treated in a lot of ways less than. Not all of them, but a lot of them were. So when you birthing kids and you're seeing this and it's not getting better, and you're hearing mom and dad talk about what they went through in the South or what they went through before, and then they looking around, they're like, it's no better. It hasn't gotten any better. You understand? So hip hop, again, for those who are watching that are faith-based, us, faith-based people, you have to understand what you see now is not the original the idea of hip hop.
Right, and I love that you hit that, and I want to touch on that real quick, and I just want to see who has jumped on with us. A couple of people have jumped on. My man Kevin Ohuma is in the building. Tamika Green Long, she is tuned in.
Sis.
What's going on, sis? She is in the building. She says blessings. Our girl Angela Ohuma is also on. My man Kylo Tony is on this mug. What's up, pimpin'? Kylo Tony, man, and I say that in all term of endearment.
Yes.
So but Kylo Tony is on, man.
Yes, thank
Good
you
to
so
see you
much.
online, my man. And our very own son, the Joshua Obanga, all the way in Abuja, Nigeria. You supposed to be asleep, man. But the Joshua Obama, the creative, is in the building. He says, hey, Papa and Mom, y'all looking super amazing.
Thank you,
and he is
son.
happy to be here. Thank you so much,
love
son.
You. We're proud
Shout
of
out to you
sir.
guys. And so I love what you said, because our faith-based people, I want them to understand that what hip hop is today is not the real intention of what it originally set out to be.
That's right.
What those kids in the inner city New York City and what those young people in inner city New York, they didn't mean for it to become what it has become.
Right.
Now we got to jump into why has it become and how has it become how it's become. And what I want people to understand is that, again, the intention was to tell the stories of what were going on in poverty-stricken areas in the inner city, what was going on with black youth, what was going on with brown youth and brown people, black and brown people, the police brutality that was going on in the neighborhood, the drugs being pushed into the neighborhood, the lack of education, the lack of resources, us being our neighborhoods being redlined to where we had to live on the bad side, the poor side of the tracks, where there were no businesses, there were no jobs, and they made ghettos out of public housing
Right.
and so forth.
And education was terrible.
And education was terrible, of course.
Yes.
And so anywhere that you have places where the education is lackluster and there are no jobs and the economy is poor and the dollar doesn't circulate in that area, then you're going to find crime.
Yes.
You're going to find crime. And the way with crime, you have to understand drugs have to be brought into a community. Drugs are not grown into a community.
No.
So you're talking about poor black and brown. And at that time, it was a melting pot of Haitians, Puerto Ricans,
Yes.
Latin Americans,
Yes.
black,
Yes.
from the Caribbean, Jamaicans, everybody was in New York City. So you're talking about a ton of immigrants up there that have migrated and they're poor and they're in these neighborhoods and there's no jobs and the economy's bad. There's racism everywhere. There's police brutality everywhere. And so this is going on in these neighborhoods. This is going on widespread throughout the country. Many black areas throughout the country are experiencing this. And it dates back to even earlier times during the 40s and 50s when the white governments, city and state governments would plow through black neighborhoods. And what I mean by plow through, they would literally take bulldozers and plow through these areas in these neighborhoods where predominantly black people live so that they could build interstates and they could build highways. Even here in Dallas, Fort Worth, you're talking about an area of downtown Dallas where there's Highway 45 and 75 and all that stuff. That was all black. That was predominantly black. You're talking about stuff in Deep Ellum that's hot and it's got clubs and all this different stuff. But those was where, black businesses were at the time, black warehouses, black furniture stores and so forth were down there in the Deep Ellum area that the city and the state funded, whites to be able to plow through that stuff with no care of what would happen to the displacing the black people,
Right.
to build highways and roads there to get up north from the south.
And so to go back to the lyrics of what Grandmaster Flash was saying, he's saying that it's too much. We're seeing the same thing over and over. Our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and and those that came before us, they've suffered and we're still suffering.
We're still suffering.
And he
Right.
said, don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head, which means in today's term, which what he's saying is I'm trying not to lose my mentally. I'm trying not to lose it mentally, excuse me. So we say now mental illness. Okay.
So they were talking about mental illness
They were talking about
50 years ago,
but
40
you
years
have
ago.
to look at why.
Right.
We're talking about mental illness as if it's something that just started. It didn't. When you have been held down and your ancestors and on and you keep seeing the plight of your people
Right.
and you're going through this,
Where you're never able to get over
never
the
able
top.
to get over the top.
And that's and again, that's what they were writing about. They're writing about the struggles coming out of the civil rights movement of
Yes.
the 60s,
Yes.
seeing their leaders assassinated, Medgar Evers, Dr. King, Malcolm X, seeing John F. Kennedy, the president, killed, his
Robert
brother,
Kennedy.
Robert Kennedy, killed. You saw so much of that coming out of the 60s, where the birthing of the hip hop movement comes in 73.
Right.
So you're not that far coming out of the 60s and seeing these atrocities that are happening right here on American soil. And so because we didn't have a voice, because black people didn't have any money, what do they create this sound and this culture with?
Right.
They create it out of their love for the music that preceded them and their
Yes.
generation. So that came out of hip hop comes when you hear the breaking of the records. You have to understand there were no CDs or no MP3s, young people. There were no MP3s, there were no iPods, there was none of that back then.
No.
They had vinyl records,
Right.
45s, vinyl records back
Yes.
then. before compact disc and CDs.
Yes.
Even before 8-track, you had vinyl records, and so what they did is they took the classic R&B records, classic funk records, funk musicians like George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic,
Yes.
Sly and the Family Stone,
Yes.
James Brown,
Yes.
Marvin Gaye. They took those records and they would scratch on them and they would break on them so that people could dance to them in the neighborhoods or whatever. And that is how it was birthed. And they would rap and rhyme.
Right.
They would rhyme their stories over those beats.
Right.
And it just kind of morphed into, and so what happened is people may ask, why all the negativity? Why all this angst that we see? It really is birthed out of the rap battles, right? So back then, and it was even friendly competition, right? It was like two basketball players, Kobe versus Allen Iverson, or Kobe versus, LeBron, right? They have mutual respect for one another because they're both amazing at the game, but they are competitors.
Correct.
And so the rap battles were battles between the best of the best as far as the neighborhood that you came from. So if you was from Brooklyn, you had your cats from Brooklyn that was rhyming. If you was from Harlem, you had your cats from Harlem. If you was from Bed-Stuy, if you was from the Bronx, Boogie Down Bronx, whatever. If you was from Staten Island, if you was from whatever, if you was from Jersey, all of those cats had dudes that they felt were the best MCs or master of ceremonies or rappers to be able to tell their stories and rhyme over beats. And that's how the battle started.
Right, in Queens.
In Queens. And so it was a mutual respect because it's like you're the best of the best that's coming to represent your borough, represent your hood, and you're doing these rap battles like, y'all some sucker MCs. That's where the lingo and the language starts coming in. And so because of that, the stories are being told where Harlem is telling its story, Bronx is telling its story. And so the rap battles became tense. They became about territory. You have to remember at this time, there were already street gangs.
Right.
In New York City and throughout America, there were already street gangs in inner city. Right. So some of those things, as far as how rap was incorporated into it, the battles would get tense and there would be fights and different things like that. But the intention of hip hop, I want to educate people just a little bit, that the intention, the heart of it was not to denigrate one another. It was not to bring in tension and fighting and viciousness and all this stuff and violence. It was not for that. It was not about that.
Sometimes even in something good, sometimes the enemy will take it and try to use it to corrupt it. So a lot of times, even though they were doing it for reasons to get the word out, to get people to understand what they were going through in the inner cities, you had others who were going to use it to do what? Right. To make sure that they could do crime or to murder or do whatever they needed to do or whatever their agenda was. But the original intent was not for that. The original intent, just like Landa said, was to get the word out there, to let people know and understand what they were going through, and through the love of music. And you named off the people, they were sampling music back then, still till this day, this day. You got the Sam Cooks, like you were saying earlier, all those different groups, the Temptations, all of these different groups and individuals that were just awesome, musicians. I think about that, in the jazz in New York, they love that jazz. And
the horns and stuff,
I love it.
And all of that became a part of the soundtrack of the neighborhoods and boroughs in the inner city.
Right.
And so, and then comes the clothes.
Yeah.
Then comes, how they wear the clothes, how they wear their jewelry. The jewelry, people may ask, where does the gold chains come from?
Yeah.
Where does the gold earrings, the diamonds, the bling, where does that come from? A lot of people don't know this. in ancient Africa and ancient Egypt
Yes.
and ancient African civilizations, there was royalty. Black people were royal. They were kings. They were queens, literally. There was wealth out of Mali,
Yes.
Timbuktu.
Yes.
There were kingdoms that were
Yeah.
opulent.
Yes.
If you go to parts of Europe, you'll hear about the black Moors that were affluent and articulate, that helped the Romans, helped the Spaniards, helped the Portuguese build their civilizations. So when people go to Rome and see the Colosseums and they marvel over what they see in Europe, what a lot of people don't know is that black royalty, black African tribes
Built those.
helped build those, gave the blueprints. We are the innovators. We are the creators of mathematics.
Yes.
We are the creators of astronomy and the study of the stars and the planets. Wasn't no Michelangelo and no Leonardo discovering no planets before Africans were. So go back to the gold chains and the silver and everything. Black kings and black queens and dignitaries and those royal tribes, they wore that as to show their prestige.
Right.
They wore that to show their royalty.
Right.
All the way to Egypt.
Right. We saw it personally.
Yeah, the sub-Saharan tribes.
Yes.
Of Nigeria.
Yes.
Of Mali.
Mali,
Of
yes.
Sudan. They wore gold chains.
Yes.
You hear about even in the Bible when it talks about Solomon.
There you go.
Where Solomon was a king of Israel. Now, oh God, I might get in trouble. There was no Middle East in the Bible, y'all.
No, it wasn't.
There's no such thing as the Middle East. Israel was Africa. Israel was in Africa. The concept of the Middle East didn't come until, what, 19th century, 20th century? So if you look in the Bible, there's nowhere mentioned of the word Africa, and there's nowhere in there mentioned of the Middle East. Israel, Egypt, neighboring countries, that was all Africa.
Yeah,
That
one
little
land.
piece of land that they call Saudi Arabia and Yemen and all that stuff today,
It was one land.
where Qatar and Dubai and all that, that was all Africa.
Yeah.
That was all Al-Kebulon.
Yeah, it was one land.
Okay, it was one landmass.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that just to give some reference. Okay, so the kings and the dignitaries wore the gold. It talks about in the Bible Solomon and how when you looked at his splendor, that they wouldn't even count the silver.
Yeah. They wouldn't
The man was so loaded with money that it was about gold.
Yeah.
All of his utensils, his eating utensils, the things in the temple was all made out of pure 100% gold. Where they ignored silver. They didn't even count it.
They didn't even count it.
They didn't even count silver.
Yeah.
That mindset comes into the hip hop culture.
Absolutely.
Where they started wearing the big gold chains, the big rings
Right.
to
Feel
show
royalty.
themselves as royalty,
Right,
to
right.
show themselves as dignified,
Right.
To show themselves as that we are somebody.
Somebody.
We
There you
come
go.
from a royal
Right.
lineage. We don't come from slaves.
Right.
We're not a people that come from slaves.
No.
We're people that come from royalty. And so hip hop made that a statement to the world through their way of dressing, through the gold, the medallions and the earrings and the chains that they wore to depict that we are somebody and that we come from royalty.
Absolutely. And also, our sis Tamika said rap wasn't a way of escape for black voices back then. Absolutely. We said that in the previous episode 1.
Yes.
It was. This was a way of escape. This was a way of escape from what you see that is going on around you, what you hear every day. Sirens going off, police, you hear them, stick your hands up,
Right.
Gunshots and all these different things that they were hearing, trying to get to school, and trying to get to school, and you got one, gang over here shooting another gang over here, trying to avoid those bullets, trying not to get killed, trying to get back to your neighborhood, trying to get back to your, your home. And it was that they were using, again, the music, so that they could escape just for a moment, for a minute, from what the environment they were in. That's what I wanted to say.
And yeah, and you're spot on. And I think one of the things that
That's a good point.
I really want to dig into is how, because a lot of people associate hip hop and rap with violence
Yeah.
and drugs and the thug culture and all these different things. Again, with the art form starting in New York City, yes, there was crime already there. Yes, there were gang activity there. Yes, there was drugs and stuff there. But hip hop was not birthed for that, to symbolize that or to push that.
Right.
Fast forward into the 80s, when now the West Coast is starting to tell their stories.
Yeah.
West Coast have been going through, particularly in California, Los Angeles, they have been going through hell since the 60s and 70s as well, coming out of the civil rights movement. And so you saw you know about the Watts riots.
Right.
You know about the killings and burnings of businesses there in Los Angeles, them not being allowed to buy real estate and so forth. I mean, Los Angeles has had it bad. Cali has had it bad. But it wasn't as widespread. Their stories weren't being told as widespread as it was in the East Coast.
Right.
And East Coast was starting to make mainstream radio, mainstream television. So West Coast was like, yo, we got a story to tell too.
Right.
And so we started hearing that from NWA, Ice Cube, MC Ren, Dr. Dre, the DOC, Eazy-E, And so when NWA, which stands for Niggas with Attitude, when they came on the scene, they were like, yo, we coming straight out of Compton. F the police.
Right.
And their message was a lot more in your face and a lot tougher, because they felt that the East Coast was kind of sugarcoating a little bit of things.
Right.
They felt the East Coast was kind of painting the picture a little bit too pretty. It was going a little bit too mainstream. It was getting soft in the early 80s. And so West Coast comes in and says, no, we still getting thrown up against cars. We're still getting dogs, sicked on us. We're still getting killed in the alleyways and the gutters. They're still putting, drugs in our communities and stashing it in our pockets and taking us to prison and giving us 40-year drug sentences, right? And so West Coast said, no, we're not sugarcoating that.
Right.
And so the creators of West Coast hip hop, the Dr. Dre's, the Eazy-E's and so forth, the Ice Cubes, they just let it rip. They let it rip. And I think the East Coast rappers because they were the original creators of the art form, they weren't expecting rap and hip hop to go that way.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because again, it was feel good music.
Right.
Rap at that when they created it, it was feel good. Let's have a good time in the streets. We bobbing our head. We we gonna have a cookout today. We jamming, we kicking it. Everybody having a good time.
But again, remember that was a way of escape.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That was in the infancy stages. You can't fault that. It's just now getting started.
Right. And I think what happened was, what I saw happen, and I was a kid, of course, was that West Coast said, yeah, that's all good and great and that's cool. But the West Coast said, we'll take the element of the storytelling and we're going to tell our stories.
Right.
And we're going to tell people what's happening to us and what is real in our neighborhoods here.
Right.
What we're seeing on the 6 o'clock news every night with the police raiding our homes, beating our black men, and killing us in the streets.
Yeah.
And when it became that, when it started morphing into that, the storytelling served its purpose. But what it didn't do is the storytellers didn't back the stories with, hey, young people, this is what we've lived and this is what we're living.
Right.
Don't go and perpetuate the violence that we're living.
Right.
Because we're getting beat by the police in our cities, don't you go start killing one another. Don't you go start beating one another. Yes, the drugs have been in our community, but you can refrain from selling the drug. You can refrain from beating one another, blah, 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 blah. Right? And I think that was a responsibility that the rappers and the artists had that they may not have understood at the time that they had that responsibility. And again, these guys are young. You're talking about Dre, and there was 19, 20 years old starting out doing this stuff.
Right.
And so I don't know if they understood the magnitude of the microphone.
They didn't. They didn't, because now that they've gotten older, they're grown now, they started to see, some of them are seeing that, oh, some of the stuff we did wasn't healthy, wasn't good, because it morphed into something that was a lot worse. You know, you got, now, like you were saying, they're using it for the wrong reasons. You know, and people are killing each other. They're starting to beef and saying, literally in their lyrics, I'm coming over and I'm going to shoot you over here on F Street in front of Taco Bell or whatever. They were starting to it was getting out of hand.
Right.
And that wasn't the original intent. Again, you went. I'm gonna go back to when you said East Coast. Yeah, they were Grandmaster Flash and them were telling their story. They were telling their story. They was telling what was going on. They didn't tell it as hard as the West Coast did when you had, again, Dr. Dre and all of them. They were really, saying, okay, yeah, it's you guys too vanilla with it. We need to tell what's really happening, what's really going on. Well, good. If you're going to tell it what's going on in your neighborhood, in your communities, good. But the thing that I did not care for is that you perpetuated violence.
Right.
You perpetuated violence, like you said, and it started to be. We already had the gangs, and now they started to use it in those lyrics. Because some of them that were, West Coast, they were in the gangs.
Right.
So they were beefing with gangs, each other, and so they were starting to use the art form in the wrong way.
But I don't think that came into play of using the art form the wrong way until it was shown to them by the higher ups, the executives.
Because you had young people who didn't understand the business
That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
You had people from outside of the culture.
Right.
You had people from outside of the race.
Right.
Who saw this art form, saw what it could do, the power that it had to bring people together. And the devil don't never like seeing unity.
Right.
UNITY.
Right.
He don't ever like seeing that. So when he saw, I believe that the powers that be, the uppers, those outside of the culture, started seeing dollar signs.
Yeah.
Started seeing that, hey, this is something that we can put our hands on. The early executives of hip hop were not the creators of hip hop.
Right.
They were not black people.
No.
And so they're looking at it from a totally different vantage point, saying, okay, what can we do to capitalize on this new art form where these young, black, gifted, but poor artists are literally creating something out of nothing. And they come from nothing.
Right.
They have broken homes, single parent homes.
Yes.
They're coming from the streets. They have no money. They're in gangs. Their parents are on crack. They're selling crack to make ends meet because there's no jobs in the neighborhoods. What can we do to capitalize on this new art form? And that's exactly what they did.
Exactly.
Is they saw it as a gold mine.
Yeah. It was
where I can take a young, green totally naive street kid who knows nothing about business, doesn't really know who he is yet. He's 19, 20 years old, but he's got this talent and this gift to be able to speak to his people,
Right.
to speak to his neighborhood, to speak in a way that's provocative, that is captivating, that's inspiring, and that is telling stories that other people are gravitating to.
Correct.
That's dollar signs all day.
All day long.
That's dollar signs all
All
day
day.
long. And because we as the black people and as the creators of our art we didn't see the value in it. But here's the thing. We didn't create it to create
Need
value.
No. No.
You understand what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
We didn't create the art to make money from it. Right?
No.
It's just like the art that's in, you travel around the world, and we've been blessed to be able to do that.
Yes.
And you travel to different museums, and we've been to the Louvre Museum in Paris.
Yes.
And you go there and you see ancient artifacts of Egypt, ancient artifacts of Sudan, ancient artifacts of Africa, period.
Yeah.
In these museums, in the Smithsonian's,
Yes.
excuse me, you guys. And you go to these museums and you see them worldwide. And we've been to several Smithsonian museums, and you see these this black art that's been created in Africa. Now, one may say, oh, well, the Africans didn't see the value in the art that they created. Of course they did. Because of look at the detail that they put into the art. Look at the craftsmanship that they put into the art, or to the paintings, or to the sculptures, or whatever, or to the masks that they created. So they did see the value. They didn't equate value with just money.
Right.
There are other
Right.
racial groups that equate value with just money. We didn't do that. So when we created something that was of value from the heart, value of this is something that will show my heritage, will show the lineage that I leave, the
Right.
legacy that I leave, that, hey, I was here.
Right.
Not just money,
Right.
but that my presence was here.
Right.
And my art depicts that. My art
Right.
depicts the life that I left for you
Right.
to pick up the baton or the torch and keep running with it. Okay.
Absolutely. That's good.
So another outside group, Caucasians, placed value with money, or money to value. And so the reason why our artwork, or black artwork, can be seen at the Smithsonian, and people pay hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars to go to these museums and to go to the Louvre in Paris and so forth. Why? Because they equate value with money.
Yes.
So, man, we were talking about how the powers that be, the executives, the record labels started seeing this as a gold mine, and how the original intention of our artwork was not necessarily, we knew of the value of it, but we didn't equate money with the
Right.
value of it.
Correct.
And so a lot of our art forms, and what we were saying is, throughout Africa, throughout Europe, you can find a lot of our art forms, our sculptures,
Yes.
in museums around the world.
Right. And
And we ain't getting no money from them.
Right.
And the British and the French and all these people that do own those African art pieces of art, they are reluctant to return that stuff back to Africa. Why? Because it's been making them so much money.
Right.
Now, it's not yours. You didn't create it. You didn't, quote unquote, discovered it. You stole it. You put it in your facilities to make money off of it. And now that we want it back because it belongs to our land, you're reluctant to give us what we created. Sounds like the record industry, doesn't it?
It does.
Sounds like the music industry, doesn't it?
Yes.
Where for years, hip hop artists have not owned their master recordings.
Right.
The record labels, those who are not of our culture, those who are not of our race group, have owned the music that the creators, these rappers, have created for years.
Right.
And so that is some of the negative that has come through the years with hip hop.
Right.
But the positive, I believe, outweighs the negative.
I do too.
And some of the positive things that I know that we've seen in the past 40 years is that when we travel, we see the impact of hip hop globally.
We have.
I remember in 2015, we traveled to Tokyo.
Yes.
And we're seeing little, Japanese girls dressed like Lil Kim.
Yeah.
And Nicki Minaj.
Yeah.
And, Mary J. Blige. We're seeing this. Japanese girls, pale skin and all, are in baggy pants or in tight-fitting skirts with the hair, with the makeup, with the eyeshadow and all this stuff. Even the mannerisms of Black female hip hop artists and entertainers.
Right.
And this is the culture that has been the bridge for all race groups globally.
It has been.
We looked at a documentary on YouTube all the way in Pakistan, you guys. Pakistan,
Yep.
where you've got underground hip hop artists in Pakistan
Right.
that are talking about the oppression and the government and the regime and all the stuff that they've been through
Right.
in Pakistan. And how are they doing it? They're doing it through the culture and through the music of hip hop,
That's
where
right.
in Pakistan, the young boys that are dark skinned, the dark skinned people go through most of the oppression.
Right. Yeah.
The dark skinned people go through the oppression.
Yeah.
And so they're telling their stories through hip hop.
Right.
And they are building that culture through hip hop, through
Right.
rap music.
Right. In Egypt, we
In
were there.
Egypt, we were
talked
we were
about
there.
that. Yeah.
Where the dark skinned Egyptians
Yeah.
are gravitating towards hip hop as the vehicle
Right.
to tell their stories.
Right. And I have to admit, they cold.
Oh, them
A
boys.
lot of cold.
Yeah.
The production. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Again, we, like you said, we saw it. We were in Japan. We saw it. We saw it in Egypt. There's almost everywhere we've gone around the world. We saw hip hop. Even, of course, in Africa.
Yeah.
It's there as well.
I think
So,
we just saw a documentary or something on YouTube where a young man was all the way in rural, I want to say Sudan.
it was Sudan.
I think it was Sudan.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And there was nothing out there, but he had like a tent set up as a store where he was selling all hip hop merchandise. Shirts with Tupac's face on it.
Right.
Shirts with, a 50 Cent's face and stuff. And I'm like, American hip hop artists. And so what it has done is you see it now, spreading throughout Africa. It's already been in Europe. It's already been in Asia. But you see it now where the African artists are now infusing hip hop and the culture that was created by African Americans.
Right.
Where you got Nigerian artists like Davido,
Yeah.
Burna Boy. There's so many others that are Tim's. There's so many
Tim's.
others that are coming out now
Yeah.
that have been infused with hip hop. And I want people to understand something is that we as Black people, we already get our soul and our strength from Africa,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But our pain was birthed right here. And the pain is what's connecting everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
The pain is what's connecting Africans to African Americans.
That's correct.
What's connecting African Americans to Pakistani.
Yes.
What's connecting Pakistani to Iraqis. What's
Right.
Iraqis to Japanese and
Yes.
Japanese to South Koreans.
Correct.
It's the pain and the oppression and the ability to be able to tell it through this culture,
Right.
through the vehicles created in this culture, through the music created in this culture. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is an advent that was created by African Americans.
Yeah.
And the pain where they would say, we will depict our pain in a way where we were not allowed to, we didn't know we could do it, and we wouldn't know it would amass to this, but we did it anyway.
Did it anyway.
And so, you guys, we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop. We know it's
50
getting late,
years.
but 50 years of hip hop. And before we get out of here, you guys, we got to drop our top 20 favorite hip hop artists. And so we broke this up into groups where my wife has her 10, I got my 10, and that's what we're going to go with. That's what we're going to rock with. So before we get out of here tonight, you guys, again, thank you so much for tuning in. We do apologize for the technical difficulties, and we will be on the money to get that fixed, you guys. And so be sure to tune back in later on this week. We're going to have the full video of the full show in one full tape, in one video, and you'll be able to view it from there, you guys. And so, again, the top 20 hip-hop artists from me and my wife, what we grew up with our generation, we finna unveil these joints right now. And so, we'll start with you, babe.
Okay.
Your top 10. Okay, this is how we'll do. We'll do your number 10, my number 10.
Okay.
Your number 9, my number 9. All right?
do it.
Let's go ahead and do it. All right. So your number 10
Okay.
favorite artist. Tribe Called Quest.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Yep, my Tribe fans out there.
Okay. So
Hey.
if we got any Tribe fans out
Yeah.
there, you know what?
I
Hit
know
us-
our boy Trevor is.
I know. Yeah. I think
Oh,
think
yeah.
Trevor is. I think he
Yes.
definitely is. Tribe Called Quest is my wife's number 10. My number 10. Let's go. My number 10. I got to give it to these boys. Let's see. My number 10 favorite hip hop artist, UGK, Underground Kings, Bun B, Pimp C. I'm from the South, baby. So you know I'm finna come with it. Got to come with my South, represent my South.
Yes.
UGK, them boys brought that twang to hip hop.
Right.
and Pimp C said, this ain't no hip hop records. These country rap tunes. So rest in peace to that boy Pimp C, Bun B, UGK. That's my number 10, babe. Okay,
right.
so your number 9.
My number 9.
All right, let's see who we got here. Number 9. Slick Rick the Ruler. Slick Rick.
the ruler.
Okay, so Slick Rick, Lottie Dottie, we likes to potty.
Yes.
We don't cause trouble. We don't bother nobody.
Yeah.
So Slick Rick, see, and you know what? I didn't necessarily grow up on Slick Rick.
Right.
But Slick did, of course he had some jams and he brought the party, when he did his thing. And so
Yes.
definitely I can shout out to Slick Rick. My number 9, gotta give it up. All the way from ATL. Ludacris. Ludacris got to be my favorite. And
Yeah.
the reason why I love Luda, because Luda came with a different delivery, and how he delivers his lyrics, and he was colorful. I love colorful
I love
animated
Luda too,
rappers.
yeah.
And for him to bring that style, but still be from the South and from Atlanta, I mean, just Luda was one of them boys that
Yes.
and he's still going. So
Yeah, he is.
shout out to Luda. All right, so we on number 8. Number 8, man,
Yeah.
you got him so low. How you got number 8 for my wife? Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G.
It's
How is he so low though? He's number 8.
yeah, he's number 8, but he's on the list.
Okay, so he's
You know,
on
I
the list.
love Biggie, but yeah.
Biggie was that dude, y'all.
Biggie was that dude.
Biggie was that dude. I think
Yeah.
Biggie got to be top 5, top 10 greatest of all time.
Yeah.
And he was here. He wasn't here long enough. I mean, I think
Just a short
he passed at 25. Him and Pop passed at 25, I believe.
Too young.
And so just way too young. My man was just getting started, had already done a whole lot of stuff, and was going to do more. I know movies would probably come out of Biggie, just television shows. So much more would have come out of Biggie. So
Yeah,
shout
to
out
his
to
family
Biggie and to
his-
his family.
and his kids.
Absolutely, his
Yes.
children. So that's your number 8. My number 8, I'm gonna give it up to. He's also the dopest producer
He is.
in hip hop, and this is my man Timbaland.
Yes.
Timothy Mosley. This is,
Yes.
yeah, I mean,
And he's our church member too.
absolutely. Shout out to Tim. He member of the Potter's House. And, Tim is legendary. I mean, he's one of the legendary producers that changed the sound of hip hop and R&B with his sound in the mid to late 90s. And so shout out to Tim. The dude is a living legend, one of my favorite producers, period. And so if anybody's watching this and you know Timbaland, hit him up and tell him to hit us up.
Right.
We'd love to meet him. And so number 7, my wife's number 7. Got to give it up, Tupac Shakur, my man Tupac. Oh,
A lyrical genius.
genius, lyrical prophet.
Yes, he was.
Way ahead of his time. I mean, this brother here was dropping jewels and tons of music in the span of just a couple of years. He passed way too early at 25, I believe. And the brother was just getting started with movies, getting started with, you know, television. He had done Poetic Justice. He had done Juice. He had done A Different World, a couple of episodes there. I mean, Pac was, you know, he was really getting, he did In Living Color, a couple of skits on there. I mean, he was just getting his feet wet. And so Pac is one of my favorite artists of all time. Definitely on my list. And just a lyrical genius, lyrical prophet ahead of his time.
I just wished that someone would have gotten in his life to help him with his prophetic gift.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
I really do.
Absolutely. So that's your number 7. My number 7, gotta give it to this dude.
Oh yeah.
Jadakiss. Jadakiss, one of the greats, living legend. This dude lyrically, I don't know too many that's holding Jada right now. Period. I mean, you know, and he comes from the bad boy era with the locks, and you know, Jada to me, what put him even higher on my list was when he did the Versus challenge, when it was the Locks versus the Diplomats, the Dipset, and Jada boo-booed on these cats. Man, I mean, the freestyle that came out of this man's mouth and how he bodied that competition on Versus. If you haven't seen it, you can pull it up on YouTube. Jadakiss buried these dudes alive.
Wow.
And that showed the lyrical genius and greatness of Jadakiss, and the beat selection that he has with his music is ridiculous.
He was fired. Yeah.
So Jada, if you watch this, shout out to Jadakiss,
Yes.
one of the legends, living legends.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely.
All right. So you on number 6? Okay.
Right. Come on.
Come on now. Living legend Busta Rhymes.
Busta.
My baby's number 6.
Yes.
Busta just got the Lifetime Achievement Award a couple of nights ago on BET.
Did. Shout out to Busta and
Busta Rhymes,
congratulations.
one of the greats.
Yeah.
Period.
Yes.
And
one of your favorites. I mean, your top favorite.
my top favorite.
Yeah.
Busta's my top favorite. He's actually number 1 on mine.
Yeah, he's number 1.
And Busta, we'll talk more about Busta here in a minute, but Busta, so animated, so colorful.
Yeah.
So raw, so original. So original.
Yeah.
Just an artist to me.
Yes, me too.
There's rappers, but then there's an artist. And Busta is an artist.
I agree with that.
He is an artist. The music is his canvas.
Yes.
He is an artist, a bona fide artist. Okay, so that's your number 6.
Yes.
My number 6. I got to go with the female on this. I got to go. You know, you could say she's hip hop, you could say she's, you know, R&B, but I'm gonna go with my number 6, Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill's got to be my number. Oh yeah, Lauryn.
Lauryn is total.
Yes,
fire. I love Lauryn.
Lauryn Hill, beautiful, articulate.
Yes.
Could sing, could rhyme, could write.
Yes.
Could produce, sang her own background vocals.
Yes.
And will get on a stage and rip that mug.
Yeah.
Both singing and rapping.
Yeah.
Ain't too many I know like Lauryn Hill.
Yeah, me either.
As far as artists. Again, these are not, I'm not saying these are the greatest rappers, my top greatest rappers,
Right.
but as far as artists, well-rounded artists are concerned in hip hop, I got to give it to Lauren.
Yes, I do too.
Got to give it to Lauren.
I do
Real
too.
quick, my man, our son Josh said Timbaland gave us great sounds, Dad.
Yes.
And he said to absolutely
Tupac.
Timbaland.
You know it.
Yeah, oh yeah, Timbaland changed the musical landscape in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, he just, and the artists that he's worked with and that he put on, the man is just a genius. He's just a genius. Okay, babe, so your number 5. I was surprised to see this. Number 5,
Yeah.
the DOC.
Yes.
The DOC. Okay,
You
so
have to remember, it's when I was a teenager, coming out of
Yeah.
being a teenager
Okay.
into adulthood.
okay,
Yeah, the DLC was one of the main rappers that I knew
Okay.
at that time. And you have to remember that was during the time when what is his name? Not Christopher Williams, but his cousin.
I'll be sure.
Albie Shore.
Okay.
All of them was on the scene as well.
Okay.
So
And so I like DLC, you know,
Yeah.
and he had some jams. And again,
He had some
a lot of
jams.
people don't necessarily associate the DOC with NWA, but he was with NWA.
he was. Yeah.
Like him and Dre was like, are still like tight like this. And so he's one of the original members of NWA, you know.
That's absolutely right.
And so
I forgot about that.
you know, the DOC right here from Dallas, Texas,
Dallas, Texas.
you know, Erykah Badu won, you know, his baby mama. But the DOC, I mean, he been in the game for a good minute.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about him. I don't know a lot about his music. I know a couple of, thumpers that he had. But shout out to DOC because the man is still here. He's still going. I believe he's still doing music. I know he lost his voice to an accident, some
Yes.
different things like that.
Yeah.
But the man is from Dallas, Texas, and he's a legend, and he's still kicking it and doing his thing. So shout out to DOC,
Yes.
and that's my baby's number 5. My number 5, let's see what we got here. My number 5, I'm going back to Atlanta. You already know.
You love Atlanta. Huh?
I'm going back to Atlanta because this was the sound that was coming
Right.
up in the 90s.
Andre 3000.
Andre 3000 of
Yeah.
Outkast.
Yeah.
Dre, lyrical poet, Southern lyrical poet,
Absolutely.
and we didn't have many of them. And Dre was colorful.
Yes.
Dre was artsy.
Mm-hmm.
He was weird, and he was himself.
Right.
He was like, if I could equate anything, I would say like Dre is the Prince of rap and hip hop. Because of the clothes that he would wear, how he would do his hair, how he would perform on stage, his shows were high energy, and then his rap skills, his punchlines, his delivery is just ridiculous. I mean, the man is ridiculous. I know he took a hiatus from hip hop, from doing music for a while because of how music has been going. And he's now getting back into the studio, so I've heard. So shout out to Andre 3000 coming back with some new music.
Yes.
All right, babe. So we almost down. We almost there. Your number 4, you went with the female on this.
Oh gosh.
Who you
yes.
got here?
My girl.
MC Light.
The light.
Yeah.
Man. Come on.
I could see this. I could see this.
I mean, she was one of the originators
Yeah.
in hip hop.
Yeah.
I mean, girls, cold. She actually performed the other night as well.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the tribute.
Yeah,
So
okay.
she would. I mean, sound good still.
She was one of the early female voices that came on the
Yes.
scene,
Absolutely.
and a great storyteller as well.
Great storyteller.
And so I like MC. I've always liked MC Light. I always thought she was beautiful.
Yes.
She was always classy to me. She was
There
always
you go.
tasteful.
Right.
You know.
Right.
She
That's
didn't.
why I liked her.
Yeah. She didn't have to have everything all hanging out, and it's.
She didn't do that.
She didn't do that. She could still be beautiful. She could still be feminine.
Right.
But she could still be gutter and put some street into it as well, and still pull it off. And so
And she did.
shout out to MC
A
Light.
living legend.
Living legend, still
Shout
doing
out
her
to
thing.
You, Light.
Okay, so that was your number 4. My number
Yes.
4, real quick, I'm gonna give it up to, excuse me, Tupac Shakur is my number 4. Y'all already know what time it is with Tupac. One of the greatest, if not the
Yes.
greatest, of all time.
Yeah, we both on the same page. With
All
that.
right, number 3. Okay, so you took it all the way back.
I took it back.
You took it back.
Yeah.
Number 3, Rakim.
Yeah. Come on.
Rakim.
New York, New York. This
Excuse
is New
me.
York right here.
This is New York sound,
Right.
and this is the one of the innovators, one of the pioneers
Yes,
of the hip hop sound,
it is.
and
He is
being an
definitely.
MC.
Yeah.
He is one of the pioneers, and so shout out to Rakim.
Right.
I don't know a lot about him because again, that wasn't my era, that wasn't my
Right.
time,
Right.
but I know he is one of the legends. Period.
Right.
He's still living. He's still doing. He sounds just as good today as he
does.
did 30, 40 years
Sound
ago.
the same.
And the brother is raw. He's done a lot for the culture,
Yes, he
a lot of
has.
positive for the
Yes.
culture. And
So
so shout out to Rakim. That's your number 3. I'm gonna go to my number 3. Let's see. Oh man, I gotta give it to this boy. Let's see. Jay Electronica. Gotta do with my boy Jay
Yeah.
Electronica. This cat in 2011 dropped a mixtape, some mixtape singles, Exhibit C, excuse me. Exhibit C. When he dropped that, it dropped my mouth. I had never ever heard storytelling like he told this story in Exhibit C. And for me, it reinvigorated hip because hip hop had gone through a slump,
Yeah.
a bunch of whackness, to be honest, a bunch of whack artists, whack MCs, nobody telling stories. Everything was about shoot 'em up, bang bang, selling drugs, women.
Yeah.
And Jay Elect came on the scene, and he gave people hope again
Yeah.
with storytelling MCs in hip hop.
Absolutely.
So shout out to Jay Elect.
Shout out to Jay.
All right, babe,
Electronica.
you're number 2. We down to
Oh, we down to number 2. All right.
what you got here?
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
I could see this.
Oh,
I could see this. Nas,
that's my boy
yeah,
right there.
Nas was that? Is that
He
joint?
is a lyrical genius.
Genius, yeah.
A storyteller.
Yes.
Of back then and now.
Yes.
He still does it.
Yeah.
And he go hard with it. I mean, shout out to Nas. Man, if I ever get a chance to meet you,
Right.
I'm telling you,
Right.
it would make my whole day,
Right,
my whole
right.
week.
Nas is the quintessential MC.
Yes,
he is the epitome of what a true MC, lyrical genius
Yes,
artist is.
he is.
He can rap and flow on any beat.
Any beat.
His wordplay is phenomenal.
Right.
And his vocabulary is wide, and he has
Very.
different topics that he can hit on,
Yes.
where he makes you feel the stories that he's telling. Starting
true.
out from his first album, Illmatic. The boy was 19.
Yeah.
The boy was 19, a teenager when he dropped Illmatic, and that joint is still a classic,
It is.
you know,
It is.
decades later.
Decades.
So
later.
shout out to Nas. I give you on that. Okay, so
Yes.
number 2 for me, I got to go with the lady,
Oh yeah.
Missy Elliott, you guys. Missy Elliott is
Absolutely.
one of my absolute favorite artists of all time.
Yes.
And this is who I would love to meet. I would love to work in the studio with Missy.
Oh, you guys that would be phenomenal.
Absolutely. And
That would
Missy is one of the pioneers of both hip hop and R&B.
Yes, she
I
is.
mean, from her songwriting
Yes.
to how she puts words and lyrics together, how she
Yes.
puts songs together for other artists and for herself.
Yes.
She is one of the leading ladies of music, period.
She is.
And she is a legend that is still with us, and I believe will be with us for a long time. I'm hoping will be with us for a long, long time.
Yes.
And so Missy definitely
She is.
my top,
Because
one of my top.
I didn't even know all of the songs, like some of the albums and stuff she was on.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was her. I was like, what?
Right.
Yeah.
Missy a bad girl.
Missy a bad
All right,
girl.
so we're gonna go to your number 1.
Yes.
And your number 1 is Chuck D
yes.
of Public Enemy. I
Yes.
could totally see this.
Absolutely. Chuck D is raw.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck D is street. Chuck D is about his people.
Mm.
Chuck D is about people. Chuck D is about liberating, uplifting, and he has, again, his vocabulary is like just crazy vast. The words he can, put together,
Yeah.
the flow. I mean, shout out to him and Public Enemy. They really made us as people of color feel like we were important. We were
Right.
somebody. And to stand up for ourselves and
Right.
stand and be important and feel important. So shout out to Chuck D, because
Yeah.
he is the man to me.
He is a man. He is a man.
Yes.
Him, Chuck D. I think about, when I think about Chuck D, I think about, KRS-One.
KRS-One,
You know,
shout out to him too. We was trying to make a bigger
Yeah,
list.
yeah,
but
yeah, we need a
he
bigger
was on
list.
there. KRS-One, shout out to you.
And
You
those
on
were
that
the
list.
original conscious rappers to me.
Yes,
Those were the
conscious
cats
rappers.
that made you think about what it is that they were
Yes.
saying.
Yes.
And we have some of those today. We have J. Cole, we have Kendrick Lamar.
We do.
And
I like Kendrick.
and we love those cats. These are more of the new school cats.
Yeah.
But we had dudes back then in the 80s and stuff that was making cats think, in the 90s making cats think about
Yeah.
what it is that they were listening to. So
Yeah.
Chuck D is
Shout out
definitely
to you, Chuck.
a living legend. And
Yes.
so my number one, my top hip hop artist, favorite hip hop artist of all time, gotta be Bustle Bus, Bustle Rhymes. This
Right.
man right here for me is just the greatest of them all. Again, just how animated he is.
Yes, he is.
How creative his music videos were, his
Yes.
beats. I mean, were so futuristic. Excuse me. And
Yes.
just, his persona, his clothes,
Yes.
his delivery, his style. Like nobody can duplicate Busta Rhymes.
No one.
Nobody can duplicate him. And he is, if I ever had a chance to meet him, just to shake his hand, he was the artist to me growing up in the 90s that I looked at, and I loved Busta because I felt him saying, I don't care what you think about me. I'm going to do it the way I do it. No matter what the industry is doing, no matter what everyone else is doing, everybody's wanting to be thug and everybody's wanting to be this and this. Busta was coming out he had elephants in his music videos.
Yes, he did.
You know what I'm saying? He had crazy outfits and hairstyles,
Yes.
and he played with all of that, and it worked for him.
It worked.
And then he would flip it over and do something sexy with Janet Jackson or with Mariah Carey,
Carey.
whatever, with something for the ladies, and he
Yeah.
just knew how to flip it. That to me is an artist. There's a difference between a rapper and an artist. And Busta Bus is in my book the greatest hip hop artist out
can
there.
dig it.
My favorite hip hop
I
artist,
love
you
it.
guys.
Yes.
And so you guys, we have had a great night
We have.
on part 2 of the episode of hip hop, the hip hop episode here on Living More with the Morgans. And we are sorry, we do apologize for going so long, but we wanted to finish out the show for those who were tuned in, who will tune in later.
Yes.
And so what we may start doing again, you guys, is we may start pre-recording the show, because we don't want these gaps to where something goes wrong and different, we just don't want that. And right now we want to do things in excellence. We want you to be able to hear us and see us in excellence. And so that's what we always strive for. And so we don't like it when something happens to the broadcast, because you don't get the best and we don't deliver the best like we want to.
Right.
And so we may pre-record the shows for Tuesday nights and air them directly to you guys. And so, but if you want us to keep going live, we will. But I think for the next couple of episodes, we'll definitely do some taping, and we'll air those on Tuesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Central, 9:30 Eastern. And so you guys, again, we thank you so much for tuning in and rocking with us and getting turned up with us right here on Living More with the Morgans.
Yes.
And so, babe, you want to say anything before we head up out of here?
Again, to all the artists that 50 years of hip hop, we love it. You guys keep rocking, keep doing it. It's just been an enjoyable ride for me.
Yes.
And I know I'm the 80s baby. My husband is the 90s. So we just want to shout out to all the artists that were our top 10. There were more. We want to shout out to all of you guys who are using the art form to lift us up, to bring us up and lift us out of our situation, and depression, and making us feel like we are people.
Yeah.
that we are we're accounted for. We're loved. We wanted. We're needed, and we are good people, and we are.
The music and the culture made us proud of who we are for our
Made us
generation.
proud. Yes.
I remember, and I'll leave with you guys with this. I can remember seeing my parents rave about James Brown.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I didn't understand James Brown. My parents were always James Brown, especially my mom. And I was like, what is up with James Brown? I don't get it. You know, it's just, I didn't get the screaming and the dance moves and stuff. I was like, what is up with James Brown? But until I got older and I started listening to his music and listening to the lyrics.
Right.
And what he was doing when he was saying, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud.
Right.
When he was saying, I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door, I get it myself. When he was saying those things, it was empowering a people
Yes.
who had been depressed
Yes.
and oppressed and rejected and dejected.
Yeah.
And so he brought soul. That's why he's called the Godfather of Soul. But he brought soul back into areas and neighborhoods of people of color,
Right.
black people,
Right.
brown people.
Right.
And they started to know and feel through his music, I am somebody. I am a man.
Yeah.
I am a black woman. I matter.
I matter.
And so the hip hop culture, the hip hop generation came right back around with that torch that James Brown and others of that regime, of that era had
Yes.
passed to the young black people. And we ran with hip hop.
Yeah.
And so hip hop has been the fuel for this generation
Yes.
to say, oh, I do matter. I am somebody.
Yes.
I do have something that I can call my own.
Right.
I do have something that I can associate with, because you have to remember, us as African Americans, we don't know where we come from.
Right.
And so when you say, oh, you're black or you're African American, you come from Africa. Okay, but from where?
Yeah.
Which region? Which
Right.
tribe? Which country? Which group of people? We don't necessarily know that.
Right.
So because we don't know that, hip hop has been able to give us an identity of sorts
Absolutely.
that says this was created by us. It's for us.
Right.
It's for the world,
Yes.
but it was created by us.
Yes.
And no entity, no corporate entity, no other race group, no organization can take that away from us and can take that contribution away from the world. And so, happy 50
Happy
years
50th years.
of
Happy 50
hip-hop.
years. Yes.
and hip hop culture.
Yes.
And so you guys will be back next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Central Time, 9:30 Eastern, right here live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to Living More with the Morgans. Until then, peace.
Peace.